style, sell with Sue. It's your move.
Hello, welcome to another episode of No Place Like Home. I'm glad you're joining in today because I have a really special guest. And today we're going to talk about music. And I wondered if I should title this Music Soothes the Savage Beast. Maybe. So I have Jennifer Buchanan with us today. She's a certified music therapist. She has over 3 decades of experience. I have heard of her work over my years. My sister-in-law is also a musician and told me about her many years ago. And Jennifer's the founder and president of JB Music Therapy. This is an award-winning company. You know, when I'm talking about No Place Like Home, I think if music can be a therapy for so many things, how much more so a natural medicine for us to use at home. And so I want Jennifer here to share with us that healing, that transformative ability that music has. And my hope is that by the end of this episode, anyone listening, and please share this, you'll be inspired to go home and do something different in your home that really creates the space that will make your own No Place Like Home even better. Welcome, Jennifer. Jennifer's the author of Wellness Wellplayed and Tune In, which I think are great titles for your books. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Sue.
Let's start off with how you started in this music therapy industry. And I think it kind of was um, spearheaded by a story about your grandpa.
Mm, Absolutely. I had a few things that all cumulatively came together when my grandfather had his second major stroke and was placed in a long-term care facility at the age of 62. And he was no longer able to walk or talk at that time. And when I said lots of things came together, one of those things was when I was 12, 13, 14 years old, I was in public school being taught how to play the guitar. And I just want to give a quick shout out to this incredible opportunity kids have to be learning music at a young age because you just never quite know where it's going to take you and what areas of your brain it's going to develop. And and in this case, it was me being able to learn a tool that I would then be able to take to my grandfather's bedside upon my granny's request and sing him something very simple, which was his favorite song. And what's important about this story, though, Sue, is prior to this moment where music's coming together, we're in a long-term care, granddad's not able to walk or talk, granny's invited me to do this, is the fact that granddad and I didn't have any real connection prior because he was pretty grumpy.
Oh,
And I just didn't feel that those feelings you have with that grandparent or that parent, and you just feel really
yes.
connected. I didn't have that. And it would be in this very first moment of singing White Cliffs of Dover at my granddad's bedside where I would feel connected to him. I'm hoping he felt connected to me. His eyes looked like they were. But we also had the screaming lady down the end of the hall that came in and sang along, and we had the wandering guy wander on in and sit through this experience. And so all these things were happening, and that's been a real part of my origin story for this profession. And although I had never heard of music therapy before, it would be years later that I would learn it is an allied health profession. There's universities that offer this as a university degree, that there's internships to be had across the country, that you can get your certification by writing a board exam and belonging to the Canadian Association of Music Therapy. All that I did not know at that moment, but that's what led to this, what has truly felt like a meaningful career.
What a wonderful way. You're so right. You never know what might start. Now, when I took music in elementary school, all I got to try was a trumpet. and not have guitars offered to us, let me just say. And you cannot serenade someone very well unless you can play that trumpet quite quite
I
well.
do love trumpet though, Sue. Are you still playing? Do you
Oh
pick it up
gosh,
once in a while?
no. No, I do not still play, but thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
I think a lot of people pick up an instrument in school and they don't continue playing, but by listening to this episode today, maybe they will think of what way music can
Mhm.
impact their lives. And I know it's really impacted yours. I know you're spearheading some development for music therapy online. I know you have won two of the most prestigious awards, the Norma Sharp Award for your lifetime achievement and the Franny Award, who
Mhm.
is was your mentor and the pioneer of music therapy in Canada. So it's not just that, you love singing and you're sharing that. There's been a lot of a journey for you getting to this point in helping people with their lives.
Mhm. And there's and I what I'm grateful for is that science has been able to follow along too. I think about what's probably been the most surprising development in all this is the fact that when I started, we didn't have the access to MRI machines that we do now and, following people's brain waves and what's happening there. I mean, we didn't have email when I started, so there's a lot of technology that has happened through all this. But what's wonderful is I just told you that story about Granddad. Well, that wouldn't be the only time that I would hear the screaming lady get closer and start singing with us and a wandering guy wander in and Granddad, who I didn't feel connected to because he was grumpy, but all of a sudden I'm feeling connection. Like all those things have now been witnessed thousands and thousands and thousands of times by music therapists and others. But the science is supporting that. Now we can through imaging scans, we can see actually what's happening within our brain and that those memory centers are activated and our mood centers and all the places where we can feel connected and we can entrain with other people as we're at a concert. We actually see that our brains start entraining to one another and connecting to one another. So syncing up. And so it's been really an exciting time to have witnessed it from just, experiencing it to also having what I say science catching up to what we already knew before. Yeah.
Yes, we know it. We know how we feel or how others
Mm,
act, Soothing the Savage Beast is not
mhm,
only with grumpy
mhm.
grandparents, it can be with crying children or what
Totally.
have been. I know you have a lot of therapists who also work for you at this point in your
Mhm.
career, but when you were starting out, is there a memorable moment that stands out for any age or any capacity of person that was touched and changed by the music?
I feel that there's been some themes, and it doesn't necessarily reflect the age of the person or where they're at in their stage of life. So it could be someone who has acquired a brain injury all of a sudden and is in the hospital and they've got a really long term recovery ahead of them, working with someone who's been diagnosed with cancer, someone who's now having to go on a dialysis machine, working with people living with dementia, working with little kids in schools who are feeling some anxiety and having struggles with learning. So I feel some of the themes that come out of using music as their a care aid, being the therapist sitting with them, is always reminding people of their strengths and capacities. It's very easy to all of a sudden start feeling like the diagnosis or the gown that you're wearing or the limitations you have because a lot of people we work with, that's what they're hearing all the time is what that is and how far the road is, and that they're going to have to find, ways to move through it. And I feel what happens during sessions is they're immediately reminded of who they are at that real human level through music. Music is at that place that does just showcase their strengths and their capacity and yeah, their humanness. So I would say that's one of the themes. I would say the other theme that happens is that there's this inevitable feeling in a lot of people where we can feel lonely. It doesn't matter if you are, the C-suite head of a major corporation to again being, that some person in long-term recovery at a hospital. We just have these feelings for whatever reason and longing for relationship and connection. And if we don't have that, we can feel isolated and alone in it. And music just is so swift and so efficient at getting us to feel connected to ourselves first and then having a quick connection with somebody else. And so if there are those moments of isolation or feeling a little low or a little disconnected, we can eliminate that at the beginning of the session and then work on something else, whether it's improved focus or productivity or a more long-standing change of mood. So I would say those are some big themes, regardless of age, ability, or music background for people.
Just opens the door.
Opens the door. Mm.
While you're sharing that, I'm reminded I have a special song that for me, um, if I'm going through a hard time or if I need to make a decision, and if this song randomly comes on, it sounds silly now that I'm sharing it in public, but to me, it always gives me a sign that yes, go forward. Yes, it's going to be okay. And
Mm.
it's never steered me wrong yet, but it is kind of a rock and roll song. And I know I think episode 4, one of the earlier episodes, I talk about my mom playing music in the house. We kind of had that 70s rock, and the Eagles and stuff. Let me ask you, is there a type of music that you particularly use in therapy? Or like what about all the different genres of music? Do
Mm.
they affect the brains differently
Mhm.
or
Oh, such a good question. I want to start with your song, and you don't have to share what it is, but it would be kind of fun if you kind of threw it in right now. But
I'll
those
tell
are,
you what it is.
yeah,
My
tell me.
special song is Sweet Home Alabama.
Oh, yeah, right?
It's
It just does it. So we call that an anchor song. It anchors to something incredibly specific. It's a very specific mood. You know it's anchored. It provides a very similar emotional response to it. An anchor song can also be something that takes you back to a very significant time and place. You remember who you were with, what you were wearing, and that emotion can carry through. But it is that real deep-seated anchor to using that song. Yeah.
wow. And so anyone over their lifetime might have a connection, and then that's sort of their song. And what about, I mean, I might just assume incorrectly, and maybe other people do that when you're doing music therapy, that it would be classical music or older music.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like,
that's
does all
great.
kinds of music work for all kinds of people? What's your experience been?
Oh, so that's another great question because I think you're right. I think there's some people think it does go a certain way. One of the things music therapists do is that we break down music into its individual elements and what each of those elements can provide someone. So, yes, it could be genre. If it's genre and the style of music, that is often coming from the person we're sitting with, their music preferences. A lot of the music we use is live. So it also means that we have to have a real kit with us and a lot of preparation that we can go there with them. We do use recorded music, but it's more live and people are a little surprised by that. And it's done in a way that we never want that person to feel unsafe or uncomfortable. So we also have to be incredibly sensitive to that. But it could also be another element of music. So we know that when someone is feeling ramped up, and they are feeling very dysregulated, we know that tempo and the groove of music can affect that. So it might not even be a specific song. We might just focus on something that is improvised in the moment, that has everything to do with tempo and groove, so we can help regulate that person and feel less ramped up. It also works the other way, because a lot of the work we do are groups. I specifically work in forensics, which is a specialized area of corrections. I will get all sorts of people in my group, coming from some that are feeling pretty high and ramped up, and some that are feeling not so good and pretty low. And putting those two groups into one group, using the same tempo and groove to bring the people that are ramped up more moderate, and the same to those that are lower. So finding a group's regulation can happen quite quickly. And a personal goal for me is within the first 5 minutes of getting with the group, so we can move into other things like, discussing the music that's important in our lives, going into songwriting, introducing a really interesting instrument that they might not have heard before. And, so many different things can happen for the rest of the session then.
I'm just imagining also just in a home, if the family is sitting around and they put on some music, or if someone was brave enough to pick up a guitar and try some, how it could bring that family together to make memories. And you talked a bit about the neuroscience of it. What are some of the other benefits?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to bring in a personal example. I remember, and probably some of your listeners either remember or are in it right now, when you've got those little kids at home. And so you've got your home, and the tone of your home has been hijacked by children. That's what's happened. They are now determining what your acoustic life sounds like in your home. For me, I had to get out of the door. I'm an entrepreneur, so I have to, go off to clients, and they always had a way to hijack me in the morning. They just weren't necessarily getting through breakfast as efficiently as I needed them to do. They weren't getting dressed, they weren't getting out the door. We had to get to the bus, we had to do all these things. And then my husband would also have his own tempo and his own routine. And most often, they weren't connected. Everyone was quite disconnected. So um, I wanted to put to the test on this, how does this music actually, how can it help the tone of our home and get us even a little bit closer aligned? And I want to interject here. I'm talking about music as this magic tool, sometimes, and yes, we know it's rooted in science, but it's not an exact science always. And we still have to put in intention and try again, just like any resource or tool we're bringing into our home. But what I wanted to test and did practice and did see results was having music automatically going on in our living room prior to everyone waking up. I had it at a pretty even 60 to 80 beats per minute, because we know that's a very nice way to wake up, but it has a bit more energy than our slumber. And so regardless of who got down there first, regardless of whether it's me or my spouse or my kids or a visitor, like anything, going down, they were introduced to music right away. Just like you might introduce to your lighting, or you might introduce to, the perfect couch that's calling out to you for your cup of coffee in the morning, whatever that's going to be, it was a part of the environment. And what we did notice is, yeah, there was a bit more singing in the morning with the kids. We did put it more 80s and 90s driven, and kids love learning that too. And we would have added in a few kids' songs as well, keeping it at that 60 to 80 beats per minute. There was a bit more activity. There was a little less friction. I don't know if anyone else has friction in the morning, but a little less friction. And we got to move through that. So, using music to set the tone of your home, just like you do lighting and the fabrics and the paint colors and everything, just another consideration.
Yes. Oh, that's such a good reminder. And if you haven't tried that, I challenge you, try this experiment in your own home. And that's just reminding me, you had mentioned something in Calgary, here, Calgary, Alberta, that we have a music mile. And so if you're, not an accomplished musician, or if you feel like you could use a little bit of help, where can people go to experience music in Calgary? What would be your
Right. Oh, it's
recommendations?
so great. So you can just online also go to Music Mile and you will find the list of everybody that's included. But it starts from East Village area. And I'm going to give a shout out to the National Music Center right now, which is a second home to me and very special. And if you head down into the Inglewood area, you're going to bump into 13 to 16 music venues along the way. And this is where you can hear live music and people putting an investment into music and musicians and giving us an opportunity to learn, to stay curious. And attached to the National Music Center is the my very first stomping ground when I moved to Calgary back in 1991, before there was a lot of things around it, and that was the King Eddie. And I loved
Oh,
going there and listening to blues music and having all the motorcycles pulling up on a Saturday afternoon jam, So I have such memories, and the King Eddie's still there. It looks different now, but it's a place where you can go and see some history and feel some history of way back.
yes. If you stopped going out over the pandemic, like many people did, and you
Mm,
have forgotten the good
mm.
places that you can go out there, go take an adventure, see what's around. Yeah, experience the music and the life. It could
Mm.
change your life.
And Sue, if people are still, not going out quite as much, I also really recommend music documentaries. So whatever platforms you're using, just type in music doc. It's so cool to hear where all our favorites have come from and what their journey was and being reminded of their music. It's a great way to just stay interested.
I totally agree. I just tuned into a Terry O'Reilly podcast yesterday, and he talked about a poet, a writer who answered an ad in a newspaper, and a musician who was a great melody composer. They both just answered ads in a newspaper looking for each kind of skill and randomly got put together. And I never knew this origin story of Elton John and Bernie Taupin.
Amazing.
So, I mean, you have to say there's some magic within the music when
Yeah.
a partnership like that comes up. So,
Mhm.
who knows? Go out, see what kind of
Oh,
magic could happen in your life from the music.
amazing. Yeah.
Do you have any final stories or examples that you could leave us with so that we could be inspired to try something new? Or maybe it's something that we could try at home that we haven't talked about already.
Yeah. I was thinking about this concept of our home and also the rooms in our home. And this is, if we were again looking at this metaphorically, there's also rooms for emotional spaces as well as physical spaces. And sometimes we just need a breather from the room that we're in. I know a lot of people that have such high pressure work and they are in a room of intensity. for a really long time, or you're getting a project done and you're in that room for a really long time. And I just want to encourage people as you choose your music with intention to think about it as a way to get you into another room, even temporarily. That room you get to define. You can name that room. That room might be comfort or nurture or love or rest or something. And when you put your intentional playlist together, you can take yourself into that other room. Again, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, a full half hour. And then you can go back to the intensity because we do have lives and we have to do those things. So as we think about our music and our homes, think about the rooms we're living in, both physically and emotionally.
Oh, that's such good advice. I'm thinking of it right now. And, you know, you also mentioned playlists. Do you know a fun thing that I have incorporated into my work because I do enjoy music is when someone starts going to look at homes with me, I actually have a curated playlist that I send them. So before we go out to the first showings, you know, if they're into it, if they're game, they can just click a button and hear a playlist, or they could make their own, you know, however it inspires. But I always think it would be great if they have sort of these songs that remind them of the excitement when you're going to, you know, search for home and it's so high energy. And maybe over the years that would bring back a fond memory for them.
Oh, Sue, that's super smart. Sounds like a major competitive advantage to me using music, and I like it. I like it a lot.
I
Yeah.
like it a lot too. Sometimes I just listen to it myself. Well, thank you so much for being my guest here today. And where can people find you and your services if they're looking for help with music in their lives?
So, if they're wanting to learn more about music therapy or more about, online presentations or in-person keynotes, or if they're wanting to learn about the new app we're developing using some really innovative health technology, any of that can be found at jbmusictherapy.com. And we just really encourage people to sign up for our newsletter. We send it out every month. You can do it right on the homepage there. And we send something out every month to keep you updated on those different areas that we're really excited about and continue to be excited about.
Perfect. And I will put that in my show notes. And maybe just before we go, who's your favorite artist right now or song that you're listening to?
Oh, that's so great. Okay, I don't know when this podcast is going to be actually released, but what we have just heard last night is we have just heard that Ozzy Osborne has passed away. And I remember that Ozzy growing up was someone that my family went, oh, that's just such terrible music. And I just recently posted an incredible rendition of Crazy Train that was done by a group of school children on the xylophones, marimbas, and percussion that is absolutely outstanding, which is such a reminder that these artists are developing music. They can be reproduced and redone in such a variety of ways, but quality music is quality music. And today I'm going to call out Crazy Train.
I love that. Thank you. That was just perfect. Go and enjoy your No Place Like Home. And I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.